my goodness. Hello, it's the Erin Strayer Show. This is a special edition coming to you on a Friday afternoon. I'm super excited that you're here with us today. The Erin Strayer Show is all about uplifting and leveraging other amazing female entrepreneurs that are out there in the world doing things a little bit differently. And this is an addition to our money series that we've had going all month long. And I am super excited to bring with you today, Sarah Schneider is in the house. We can't see your name. I don't know why. And I'm Erin Strayer, and I'm your accelerated business strategist and growth consultant and interventionist, bringing you all the hot topics and filling the holes that need to be filled. So Sarah is yeah, she's our Texas guru. I'm super excited that you're here with us today. And on this special, this is going to be super fun today, guys. If you're here with us, let us know that you're here. Say hi. We'll give you a shout out and say your name. And if you got questions as we're rolling along, make sure you drop them in the feed and we'll address them either now or later if we're rolling. So we'll make sure we address those. But Sarah is like this most amazing holistic nutritionist. That's not always been your lane. You've been in corporate. Yep. You have, because most of us have done something before now. So you were this like off the charts, amazing corporate marketer in the health and wellness industry. Went to the office every day, did the thing, right? Like, let's talk about that for a second, because we're going to touch on that as we go forward today in our chit chat about money.
Yeah. So I actually, I got a degree in dietetics, and instead of going straight into clinical or going into private practice, I went to corporate and I worked for a nutritional ingredient company. And I ran the marketing department for a $220 million publicly traded nutritional company. And then after about 10 years, I started, getting a little bit exhausted from just the red tape and the bureaucracy and all. Yeah. And so then I decided, I got really clear on what I wanted out of life. My grandfather had just died, and he was a big entrepreneur, and he always did what he loved. And I thought, life is too short. So I started creating my exit slowly but surely. I started kind of planting all these seeds so that when I got out of corporate, that I would have this booming business and do what I love. And that's really helping mamas specifically really reset, heal, and learn how to nourish themselves in all aspects of life, not just in food, but in, emotions and in parenting and partnership and personhood and all of that good stuff.
Yeah. And I love it that you dropped the word mamas in there, because the majority of us that are in the entrepreneurial world and are making a go of it, we're mamas, and we are massive multitaskers, and we do all the things, right? Like, we do all the things that all the rest of the moms do. We just don't leave the house, and there's a different mindset that comes in with that, and a different level of organizing your time.
Yeah,
right. And I love what you're going to be talking about today, as far as that head and the heart business principles that go right in alignment with success. Yeah. Right. And how we get to approach that, and your field of thinking and your lane of thinking is much different, and which is why I'm loving that you're on the show with us today. And I can't wait to dive into this. And Grace is on here, and she's so excited to join us live. What a cool countdown clock.
Hi, Grace.
Hi, Grace. Super glad that you're here. Yeah. So there's a little bit of a difference between the corporate world and entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So
basically, when I transitioned, I thought, you know what, I'm going to start planting the seeds, and when I get out, it's going to be great, and everything's going to flow, and everything's going to be this glorious thing where, you imagine, I'm going to sleep in a little bit, I'm going to take my kids to school, it'll be really perfect.
Right.
It is, but there's also a lot of head and heart work that really have to go into it. I know when I was in corporate, I was highly successful, making six figures and all that good stuff. And it's, to me, it feels easier, and this can be different for everybody. It feels a little easier to be a part of a group of people, a community of people who are all in it for the same goals. It's a little bit different, and it takes a huge mindset shift. And this is where the head and heart work comes in. When you're shifting from this idea of corporate, being successful in corporate, and you're just one person out of 40,000 or whatever, to I'm not selling a commodity, I'm not selling a product, I'm not selling a service, I'm selling myself. And to some extent, you do sell yourself in corporate day in, day out, proving your worth, and your value to the CEO, the CFO, or whatever. But yeah, it really comes down to shifting this idea that like you're literally selling yourself. And that can be really hard when you first get out there and you realize,
right?
I have to actually do this thing, and I have to put myself out there, and I have to show vulnerability, and I have to share parts of myself that are going to be hard to share, and I haven't had to do that in corporate. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And what comes in with that is that it starts that disconnect, right, with yourself, and it starts that disbelief, and this starts happening, and this starts happening a whole lot more. And, before we know it, like we're talking ourselves out of all kinds of things, and our goals become less and our actions become less. And yeah, let's just go there, like Sarah.
Yeah.
With how we get to connect that back with the success that we want, and that mindset that we want. And what's that look like in your world?
I call I call that negative thought gremlins, and they're very, very pervasive.
Gremlins?
Yeah, negative thought gremlins. And the way that negative thought gremlins work is one small thing turns into another, and it just absolutely consumes every thought that you have. It's the same thing in my nutrition practice with my clients, with the negative thought gremlins telling them that they're not enough, they're not good enough, they'll never be good enough, they're too big, they're too dumb, they're too whatever. And it keeps them small, it keeps them low. And it's the same thing in business. Those negative thought gremlins start going, and you start questioning who you are as a person. You start questioning if you are fraud. Like that's a huge one when you first start out. Like, so I've been doing this for 10 years. I have a degree in this stuff, but other people, they have like PhDs. Maybe I should go get one of those first. Maybe I should become a doctor. You start finding yourself fraudulent. You start thinking that you're not going to be good enough for this, or so-and-so, they can put themselves out there, but like I'm an introvert. Like I don't think I can do that, or whatever. And I think it really comes back down, like you said, one of the things that I work on with people is head and heart work, and this idea of nourishment. So when we think of nourishment, we automatically think, food, what we put in our mouths. But nourishment extends so far beyond food. It's any food or substance that helps you grow. So whether it's growing as, a person, like a little person growing, or if you are, growing mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like all of these things factor in. And it's the same whether you're in the nutrition space or if you're in the business space.
That like landed so hard for me, like that nourishment is different than food.
Yeah.
Like, let's say that one more time. It's anything that I know, like I was like, lost everything else. I'm like, wait, I gotta write that down.
This is how far we've come from where we started as people, as beings. This is actually the definition. Like if you look at Webster Dictionary, like this is the definition of nourishment. It's any food or any substance that allows you to grow or contributes to your well-being or contributes to good health. So it's anything. And when I look at nourishment in terms of business, it's the same principles, right? I have that thing called the nourishment blueprint. It's the physical, the psychological, and the strategic needs that have to come together, that you have to honor, so that you can do this stuff. And it's the same thing. It's all about nourishment.
Yeah, let's like go there for a second too, because that blueprint is brilliant. Like when we talked about that off camera, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like off the charts. And I think it's absolutely phenomenal what you've put together and that you call it a blueprint because, those of us that are coming from corporate, that's like, we got it. We know exactly what that is. That's my map. Where is it? Right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's my map. I want that.
My corporate background.
Yeah.
Where's the formula?
Where's the formula? Give me the agenda. Let's have the step-by-step guide. Where's the policies, right? Like, but that blueprint is, and calling it that and making that connection, right? I like make a triangle because that's what it seems like. Yeah, that's what it seems like to me. That physiological, the psychological, and the strategic. So, like, let's talk about that for a little bit because you can't have one without the other too, either. Because then you're like unbalanced.
Right. And it's all about honoring who you are. So the reason that I came up with this is because there are 80 million, and I'm going to go sciencey for a second. There are 80 million variances in the human genome, right? Then you take that on top of all the experiences that you've had over your lifetime that have actually influenced your personhood and your DNA, right? And so there's so many variances that any one person, like I have a good friend, she's a holistic nutritionist as well. We have almost the exact same philosophy of nutrition, but we're completely different, right? And we approach our businesses differently. Our business models are different. Everything about it is different, even though we have the same principles. And so for the Nourishment Blueprint, it's really about figuring out the physical components, the biological components, and then the psychological, and then the logistical. And physical meaning, like, what do you need to do to show up? Like, personally, what do you need to do to show up? How do you need to nourish yourself, number one, but also nourishing something else, right? How are you going to nourish your business? So, and then nourishing your family life so that cultivates a positive environment for you to be able to go do what you do. But really, that's like physical component.
Like a whole nother triangle over there just for, the physiological part, right?
Yeah. And so it's really about, physically, how are you going to nourish yourself so that you can show up? Because if you're not feeling great, if you're not feeling like your best self, if you, are like a lot of my clients, they experience a lot of health issues and, weight issues. And with that comes the confidence and the ability to show up and all that. So physically, how are you going to nourish yourself so you feel good? You can get up in the morning, you have energy, you want to do this thing. And then also physically, how are you going to nourish your business? Like the nuts and the bolts, how are you going to nourish your business? And really, it's going to be different for everybody, right? Because the way you nourish your business is going to look completely different than the way I nourish mine physically.
Right. So, let's talk about that for a second in nourishing our business, because I think that that's a point that a lot of people have never thought about. Like, just never thought that you got to nourish and give your business that self-love and that self-care. It's not just going to the salt float once a month or going to get a massage or getting your toes done, right?
Yeah.
Like, right? Or making sure you're eating enough vegetables during the day, right? Like, nourishing your business is so, it's pivotal in your success with how much, how do you describe nourishing your business?
Yeah, so it's this idea that you're going to give life to your business, and then you're going to, like plant the seeds and like watch them grow. So like you're literally nurturing your business, and everybody's going to do it a little bit differently. For me, it's really about coming into my own and becoming really vulnerable with my story. My story is one of struggle. It doesn't feel good to share this very overweight, very uncomfortable, very, low self-esteem self, because I've done all this work and I've gotten to the other side and I don't really feel like sharing that part of me, but I have to share my story. So for me, nurturing my business looks a whole lot like sharing my stories, sharing my vulnerabilities, exposing who I really am, because that's what you're doing. You're selling yourself, you're selling your story, you're selling who you are to help people realize that they're not alone, so that they too can do the exact same thing and see not the exact same transformation, but the type of transformation that you experienced yourself. So, but like, that's what I'm saying is everybody's going to do it a little differently. That's how I do mine.
I love that. And I know that we didn't talk about you sharing your backstory or a little bit of your struggle, but we know that it was there. And you mentioned a little bit, of being that overweight person and that, that struggle. Can you give us just a little snippet of pre Sarah?
Oh, yeah. So I actually came from a family. Everybody, all the women in our family really struggled with their weight. They struggled with overeating, disordered eating. For like 5 generations, generation after generation, women in my family struggled. And I started gaining weight about third grade. And it wasn't until I was in my early 20s that I realized I don't want to do another diet. I don't, because they don't work. They work for a little bit, but they don't work. And I wanted to do this forever. And that's when I came onto this idea of I'm just going to nourish myself. I'm just going to heal my body. I had a lot of health conditions. I had IBS and asthma and, a lot of things that a 20-year-old kid shouldn't have, right? And so, yeah, I figured out how to heal your body with nutrition. And I did that. I got down to like the size 0 and I was super excited. And then I realized I was miserable. I had gotten down to the weight that was good for my body, but I didn't feel confident in myself. I didn't feel comfortable in my skin. I had, issues with worthiness and deserving and all that good stuff or bad stuff. And so that's when I started applying the head and the heart work. And that's when it like ding, ding, ding. You have to do it at the same time.
Yeah.
You have to have the healing, nutrition, the nourishment with the mental and emotional and spiritual nourishment at the same time for you to achieve the level of success. And it's the same thing with business. Absolutely the same principles go through in business.
Yeah. And it's so pivotal. It keeps coming into mind while you're talking, like that word just keeps spiraling in my head, that it is so imperative that those two do intersect and go forward at the same time. Otherwise it's so unbalanced.
Yes.
And we spoke about this earlier, but so many people don't realize that you have to have that balance between both, the physical side, so the nourishment and the mindset work, so that head and the heart have to have the same amount of attention and work to make it go. And otherwise you're still going to be spinning your wheels. Something still isn't going to be right. Something still isn't going to be, you're not going to feel good, or your business isn't going to be going the way that you want it to go because there's a piece lacking.
Well, and that's a big piece of it. So I have clients who have come to me because they've lost the weight before, but then they gained it back. And the reason that they gained it back is because they don't know who the person is that they become. So they have this massive transformation and then they don't know who this is. They haven't done the head and the heart work. And so it's really easy to slip back into those old habits. And it's the same thing for a business. For when I first started my own business, 1 week into launching my business, I had a $4,000 client. Woohoo, right? Scared the living bejesus out of me. I didn't know how to sustain that level. I didn't know what it would take to sustain that level. And so I stopped. I paralyzed myself a little bit because I didn't know that person yet. I didn't know that successful entrepreneur yet. And so that's why it's so important to do the head and the heart work while you're doing all of the logistics stuff like some business coach brings to you. It's both.
Yeah. So do you find that your people, when things like that happen, right? They get that one client, that big, that one big paying client, and then they go into like that retraction mode because they don't know who they are, and then it becomes a scarcity, right?
Yeah.
Do you find that? Like, oh my gosh, when's the next one coming? I have to make sure this lasts. I don't know what I'm doing with it.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, whether it's nutrition and you've lost a few pounds and then you're like, oh my God, I've plateaued and what if I'm never going to lose another pound again? Or if it's something like I've got several entrepreneurs that I work with on a nutrition level, but we do the whole life stuff, right? So I've had, clients come to me and they're like, I don't know how I'm going to charge $200 for this program. Like it just feels really expensive and blah, blah. And now they're charging like $4,000 because not for the same program, but $4,000 because they feel worthy. They feel deserving. They know that they can ask for this price, but it's that messy middle. That's when people quit. They get to that point where they they have had a little bit of success, but they don't know how to keep going. And that's when they really need somebody to just sit there and hold space and let them, and then keep going. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a pause. Like I always talk about this with my clients. It's a pause. It's not a quit. It's not a stop. It's just a brief pause. Get your, like your bearings.
Like,
I guess that's like the word I can think of. Like get your bearings and then keep going. But sometimes you need that person to hold space and remind you that this is part of the process.
Right.
I didn't have that in the very beginning. I was just like, what do I do?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a piece that's missing for a lot of us that are out there too, is that having that person that is that solid, that unwavering, that stand for you, that knows that this is exactly what's supposed to happen. And guess what? You're doing it.
Yeah.
Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Don't quit, because So like, I love how you love your clients and have that connection and have that knowledge, right? That they need you to hold them accountable and hold that space for them at the same time. So it's like, I ain't gonna let you quit, girl.
Well, I think a lot of people, and this is not just how our bodies physically react, like biologically, but also our minds. When we're on a huge journey of transformation, there's this point where we have this little plateau, where we have this little like space where things kind of settle. And a lot of times we feel like that's a bad thing. But what's really happening is that your body is resetting to a new set point. And what's incredible about that is that you're allowing yourself to reset to keep moving forward. But we forget that. We feel like if we hit that point, like, oh, we hit bottom. There's nowhere to go from here. It's not happening. And then you start getting the negative thought gremlins. You start lowering your vibrational, space, and you're not going to keep going. So it's in those moments are absolutely critical to hold space. And remember that this is your body or your mind resetting to allow yourself to have a higher set point, only for yourself to be able to grow and propel into the life that you want to live. At that next little junction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense, because so often, and I know a lot of people will relate to this, regardless of where you are, whether it's business or spiritual or health, leveling up, moving through those stages, right? Like I know I can feel the shifts inside of me, and things like that used to be okay and lined up don't line up anymore, right? Like the friends that you used to hang out with, right? If you're leveling up spiritually, those people aren't at the same spiritual level as you, and so all of a sudden they're not lining up with you any longer, and because you've raised your vibration. And it's the same with your business. It's the same with your, you know what I mean, like your emotional well-being. And I agree 100% with that, and I love that you bring that part in. I love that you bring that part in.
Yeah. And that's why it's weird, because when you approach me about like nourishment and money, I'm like, well, it kind of go together, which is strange, but they do. There's so many similarities there.
Yeah, and I love the parallels, because, and you nailed it with your analogies of it. And I love that you have to, you spoke on nourishing your business. I think that's brilliant. I want to talk about what else is going on with you, like how people can find you, what you have going on, your programs that you got going on, because I know that that's out there and rolling, and you service a lot of different people in a lot of different arenas. So what do you got going on right now?
Yeah, so my program is called Nourish Life. It starts in May, and it's a 9-month transformational program. It combines intentional living and complete nourishment. So nourishment on all aspects, physical, like I was talking about, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And so we're going to, really dive deep into growing in so many different areas. So whether it's like nourishment or mindfulness or emotion, self-care, self-love, all of these different areas that will influence the way you show up. So like I said, I have entrepreneurs that, have done my nourishment programs, and all of a sudden they went from charging $200 to $4,000. And it's because they're able to nourish the different aspects of their life, illuminate those areas that really need healed, heal them, and then be able to move forward in a whole different way, right? So this program, it's 9 months long. We're going to talk about all kinds of things from, partnership, parenthood, whatever it is, I'm trying to think of all the different health, wealth, nutrition, obviously. They're all going to get my Nourishment Blueprint program, which is just awesome. There's been a lot of success in that. And I love the idea that it's a 9-month long process. So if, you really want to have that transformative experience and you really have a lot of room to grow and evolve in that, nourishment space. So if you're trying to lose weight or trying to heal your body, you really have a good 9 months of being able to do that. So that gets you through the end of January of next year, which is kind of cool. So you get through the holidays. Yeah, you get through all of it, and you still have that support system. Yeah, you have that support system of other people that are doing it with you, number one, but also, weekly coaching calls. I'm going to have expert series. I've just talked to different people who are going to come in and talk about self-love and self-care. And, one lady, she's coming in and she's going to work on emotions and EFT tapping. And it's just going to be a really robust experience for anybody who's really looking for transformative change.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So when we're done, will you drop the links to how people can find you, or the links to, that program or your group or whatever you want? Can you drop those in the feed when we're done? Just so people can hop in and check you out and start trolling and hanging out in your space, because a lot of the things that you do, your blog is beautiful, the recipes that you post are beautiful, the stuff that you do with and around business is amazing, like all inside of your group. It wasn't just put together for this talk. So this is all things that you do. So I did my research too.
Yeah. I see.
I did. And it's really, really cool. And I think the people that are in your space are just changed for life because of you. So I think that, isn't that cool? Do you have any desire to go back to corporate?
No. No, my husband's still in corporate. So I get a little snapshot every once in a while of what that looks like. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I'm out. In fact, what's really crazy is my husband and I actually met at work several years, long time ago now. But that company has been acquired by another company. So it's completely, and it's weird. It's like God was saying, okay, you're done. You're not going back. You're done. Right. This is where you need to be. This is your divine purpose. This is who you should be helping, and you're done. So that's it. I work with moms and I help them reset, heal, and nourish and thrive, and that's what I do.
And it's beautiful, and life is good, and you love to work every day.
And my life is crazier than ever, and I guess also a lot more fulfilling too.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. That's so cool. People, we've been talking with Sarah Schneider today, and she is the founder and the visionary behind Nourish Your Life, right? Mm-hmm. Nourish Your Life. She's going to drop her links in here below. We've been talking today about all the head and the heart business principles, and there's been a lot of nuggets that are dropped in here today, and we are super glad that you've been on this special edition with us. If you're watching the replay, let us know that you've been watching the replay, and let us know if this has been valuable to you. This has been the Erin Strayer Show, and we're so glad you've been with us today. Thanks so much. We'll see you back here soon.
Bye, guys.